Sometimes the people and events that inspire us the most come from the least expected places and the least expected moments. And it's usually a moment of change. It's a moment when we have to diverge from doing the things the way we've done them, and the world as we know it changes. And this is a moment when we have to articulate a new path. This happened for me. There we go. This happened for me several years ago when I began working on the curriculum for a girls' school in Rwanda. So I visited Rwanda, where I met the Minister of Education, spoke with teachers, professors, and students. And here's what I learned. That Rwanda had had an education system based on an antiquated European model. And the pedagogy was nearly exclusively rote learning. And very little effort was made to get to the depth of material and a deeper understanding. And mostly it was a country still recovering from the terrible genocide that had occurred there in 1994. The Rwandan professionals I spoke with had attributed the genocide to a confluence of historical events and circumstances. Each person, without fail, felt that the lack of an educated citizenry had contributed greatly to the genocide. Limited questioning, fear to speak up, all of this was a result of the school system where Rwandans had rote learning and had very little questioning or problem solving. The results of that kind of thinking were, to say the least, catastrophic. And as a teacher, I was impacted dramatically by that. Building in reflection, questioning, and problem solving would now be a non-negotiable in my curriculum. Diverging would mean creating a curriculum that included application of ethics, interdisciplinary knowledge, and technology, getting kids to solve real-world problems. So, working with Kellyanne achieved the goal of truly developing this aspiration on a larger scale, continuing to engage students while simultaneously reaching out to include the teachers on our team.
So how did Kathy and I begin the work of leading teachers in the design of a divergent curriculum? Well, back in 2007, our program director tasked us with eliminating the 100-question multiple choice final exam, and we're happy to comply. So we're happy to comply. That was funny, right? Okay. So students across all grade levels were scoring significantly lower on the final exam than their overall grade point average, or their overall average in English class. This was especially true for our Black and Latino boys, who were consistently scoring in the D+, C- range on their final exams. In addition, the population of our school was also changing significantly. So these changes compelled us to differentiate the way we were teaching and assessing students. And we viewed our students' growing linguistic diversity and variety in learning styles as an asset rather than a hindrance. In that first year, Kathy and I decided to start small by collaborating on a capstone project that was based upon Shakespeare's play The Tempest, in which it was expanding upon themes in that play that required students to create a utopian society. And we called that the 7th grade symposium. In seeing our students perform their learning, we were struck by how frequently students were drawing upon their strengths in other subject areas in order to problem solve. We also noticed that in their collaboration, that students were demonstrating attributes that we hope to replicate in our teaching teams. Back when we started this work, 7th grade team meetings were primarily focused on student support that was quite disconnected from anything curricular. In fact, it often felt like when the bell rang at the end of our meetings, I would have to cross a moat back to my classroom and pull up the drawbridge. This was in sharp contrast to our students who are making connections between our classes that we didn't even know existed. This was supposed to be funny, too. Thank you. In our current model, teachers are divided, virtually divided into factions by the subjects that they teach. And I lost my card for this one, but it's okay. Where's my card for this one? So in changing this model, sorry, in changing this model, Kathy and I decided that, or we had to learn how to leverage the strengths of our amazing colleagues on our team in order to do this. But this was only after our students helped us envision what could be if we let down our walls. Ultimately, this work required reframing our curriculum around global issues rather than individual subjects. For example, in Latin class, our students began researching deforestation in ancient Rome and how irresponsible agricultural practices could lead to the collapse of the empire. And for example, in this Adobe Photoshop poster, you see one of our students taking this concept a step further by connecting this learning to what he learned about in humanities class about slash and burn agriculture, and this was during a unit on the Mayans. Last year, we also decided to take our mid-year science fair and turn it into a Divergent project. The theme of this project was how we can reuse household waste in order to make the world a better place, and we did not intend for that to rhyme. So this actually worked out so well that one of the teachers on our team actually published a book about it. So in math class, teachers would support the students working on their science projects by helping them take their statistical data and represent it graphically. And you can see how this type of learning could build into their symposium project in June, because students would then have to analyze statistical data and create new mathematical models with it. So in the following clip, this is one of our former students, Armani, who's an 8th grader at our school, and he's going to give you his unique take on our Divergent curriculum. It seems important to note as well that since we've instituted the symposium project, the final exam scores for English for our Black and Latino boys has gone up to a B+, A- range, and we're very happy about that, obviously. Oops.
The second quarter at BLA was awful. Absolutely terrible. The first quarter, I got all A's and B's, and I thought I was on a pretty good track, so I started to slack off. Then, around the second quarter progress report, I had 3 C's, an F, and a D. By 4th term, I was beginning to learn from my mistakes. But then, this project slapped all of us clean across the face. Symposium. This thing is no joke. I give you a message from the future. Please, by the love of all things holy, pay attention in all of your classes and be organized to the fullest extent. Because this is one of those projects where that humanities paper that you threw away in October is gonna come in handy. This project is like the Avengers of all projects. Every class experience you have partaken in must be combined into a mystical force to take down the symposium overlords. But this is all just a big reflection for the final battle. This is like the mini-boss before you beat Zeus senseless on Mount Olympus and God of War. This is the herd of wild dogs before Cato puts Peter in a headlock. This is preparation for the final exam. Every class has a final exam. And symposium is just a big roundup of what you've been learning all year long. So prepare, because it gets really frustrating if you're not prepared. But in all seriousness, if you're still listening, this is just a hill of the mountain you're going to have to climb. And trust me, the view from the top looks pretty good.
So another change that we made last year was revisioning the symposium is less of an event and more of an idea exchange, meant for students to be able to debate and explore the topic of how to improve the world. In the following clip, you will actually see our students engaged in a Socratic seminar in which they're grappling with ambiguity. And that is another essential skill that we've been trying to emphasize in our curriculum.
I disagree and agree with Empress because the U.S. government was giving away a lot of land to farmers so they can grow more wheat. But if you were a farmer back then and they were giving away a whole bunch of land, you would want to grab that land before somebody else did. And I disagree with Nathaniel because when the U.S. market went down, the price of wheat and bread went up, not down. So more and more people would want to become farmers than not.
So, perhaps what's been the most challenging in the work that Kellyanne and I have done together has been when our colleagues assume that replacing the 100-word multiple choice exam lacked rigor, and that we somehow in this work were not preparing students for college. Oops. I gotta go back, sorry. No, sorry, there we go. What you can see here, these are our questions from the end of last year's symposium. These were generated by our students. And we believe that the true mark of our success is when our students leave us with more questions leaving than they have when they started. And likewise, we hope that our teachers on our team will maintain the same sense of curiosity as well. We recognize the need to connect our students and our colleagues to the curriculum, and by doing that, we're crossing over that moat that Kellyanne talked about earlier, and opening our students' world to the wall, and opening the walls to beyond the classroom. So, we are not the teachers you see in the movies. We are not lone warriors struggling alone in isolation. We know it's more important for the teachers on our team to work collaboratively with each other as well as with us. It's essential for each teacher that each teacher is respected and valued as much as the other within our teaching teams. Each member is a risk taker who embraces the insight and values of the other teachers. Furthermore, each teacher possesses a heightened awareness and curiosity about what is happening in their classroom, what's happening in the world, outside the classroom, and what their role can be in bridging that gap for their students. This maintains a culture of inclusiveness. And honesty. This level of mutual respect will allow our teaching to remain adaptable. Maintaining flexibility is critical to our mission to replicate our model of teaching and learning. So these are the attributes that we hope to develop in our teaching teams and with our students simultaneously. Incorporating them takes desire, time, and determination. But our model is effective and it is replicable. Getting students and teachers to take the emotional, intellectual, and social risks necessary for divergent teaching and learning isn't always easy, but it turns out to produce some amazing new thinking and ideas. Imagine if all teaching teams were structured like this. What would the impact be on our students and on our world? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kathy and Kellyanne, for that presentation on divergent teaching and new ways of working together. We do have time for a couple of questions for Kathy and Kellyanne. So again, if there's a question from the audience or two, we'd be happy to take it.
No. Thank you. Good night.
See, I shouldn't have told you they'd be waiting at the end. Yes, sir, in the back.
So did you totally replace the final exam with the symposium? And if so, how do you grade that and make sure that they understood everything they need to know from the entire year?
Well, last year we actually had to revise the whole symposium assignment because we had, through their accreditation process, oftentimes schools develop a whole new group of whole school rubrics that you have to implement. So we actually ended up changing the symposium assignment so that the different aspects of it connected to the whole school rubric. So that was one part of it, and we grade the symposium assignment collaboratively as well on our teacher team. So it's not just the teaching and the planning, but it's also the assessment as well. But in addition to that, the final exam is actually based upon the symposium in some way in the individual subjects. So for example, what Armani was reading from was actually his final exam essay last year, and the prompt for the essay is just basically how have you mastered our curriculum through demonstrating all of these skills. There's, I guess, a requirement that all of the teachers on our teams use the symposium as a basis in some way. So they're actively listening through the symposium as well and taking notes because they know that it's going to be assessed on the final exam.
Thank you. Oh, Lynette, I can't see whoever's asking that question.
There's a poll. I'm just curious, how much time do you guys spend collaboratively planning, and how has that been carved out into your school day or not?
So we are lucky in that regard. Our principal a few years ago, and I think it really to some degree was predicated on this work that we're doing, divided the teachers in our school into interdisciplinary teams. And so we are lucky enough to meet 3 times a week now. That wasn't always true, but it is now. And we are able to spend a majority of that time on curriculum, which we enjoy, and obviously has a payoff because this is ongoing and evolving. It isn't a stagnant approach to teaching and learning.
And we're also still focusing on student support in our meetings, but we are just we're making connections between how we're supporting students and how our curriculum is supporting students.
Great. Well, please join me in thanking Kathy and Kellyanne again. Thank you.